Welcome to the White Sox Recap Podcast. I am Ryan McGuffey. Literally my favorite time of the baseball offseason is here. Brian Anderson's here again. And BA, before we get the show started, the baseball winter meetings are I think a media member gem. You don't understand in this case what I'm talking about of roaming a hotel lobby and following the stories late into the night. But White Sox specific here. This is a big week ahead for the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, I mean, as a former player and someone who was trying to get back into coaching, I was always advised to go sit in the lobby at these winter meetings, but I have this little thing called pride, so I shall not be doing that.
I clearly have no pride. And another guy who has no pride. Oh, wait, that's not fair. Michigan's prideful. Scott Merkin of MLB.com, the fine beat writer for the Chicago White Sox, is going to join us because his boots will be on the ground of those hotel lobbies in Dallas, Texas, when Brian Anderson and me, Ryan McGuffey, bring you the next episode of the White Sox Recap Podcast. It starts right now. All right, so BA, before we bring in our fine friend, Scott Merkin, you and I at length and almost ad nauseum at this point have been talking about will he or won't he be traded? And Garrett Crochet, we keep seeing reports, other teams interested. It feels like momentum is building for next week's winter meetings for Garrett Crochet to possibly be dealt.
Yeah, and there's some other players in that mix as well. But again, he's probably the main target, right? I mean, clearly the main target for any of the power players in baseball. But again, it's just a matter of like, what can you get for Garrett Crochet, right? And that's where you and I battle. And then we also have a little bit of an inside bet on who's going to get traded first, right?
Yeah, let's get into that. And let's bring in our buddy, Scott Merkin, the fine beat writer for MLB.com and the Chicago White Sox. Merk, always good to see you, my brother, on and off the field. And
Great to be here. And I got to tell you, as a kid, I used to watch Brian Anderson roam center field at guaranteed rate. So it's an honor to be on with.
Merk, you've been 45 for 40 years. How have you never been a kid?
Didn't you get into business because of Brian Anderson? Like you didn't beat him, you'll chase him?
I stayed in the business because of Brian Anderson, I think.
Thanks, buddy.
No, it's great. It was great to cover him. He's a great guy. Great to be with both of you guys.
Appreciate it, Merk. All right. So, I was saying in the open there that I love, let's just talk about the winter meetings as a whole, because I don't think fans truly understand the appreciation. I don't know what I don't even know your take on this. It's my favorite in all the sports. And I've been around you for a long time. Of all the sports, it's an exhausting 4 days. I don't think a lot of people care to hear that all that much.
Right.
I don't know how exhausting it'll be this year for those covering the White Sox, but I actually kind of feel like it might be because of the Crochet stuff. What is your take on just covering the winter meetings? Because it's seriously one of my favorite things.
Well, this is my 23rd year, I think, covering the White Sox. This will be the 23rd year. I kind of add up by how many managers I've covered. That number's increased the last.
How many is it, by the way? How many managers?
So it was Ozzie 8, 5 for Robin, 4 for Ricky Renteria. So what are we at there? That's 17, right?
3. Yep.
2 for Tony Cairo.
Never met him.
2 for Grifol and Sizemore. And then my very first year, I just had him for 1 year, was Jerry Manuel, 2003.
7 managers. And so
and then you can throw Coop in for the 2 games when he replaced Ozzie. Right? So there you go.
So Venable's 9.
9. There you go. 9.
Oh boy.
And Joey Cora probably filled in at some point along the way too when Ozzie was gone for.
So you're saying
family
Merk is around? Maybe this will be the last time we have Merk on. I don't know if the podcast will exist much longer.
Yeah, Merk, you're not going to have a job by the time the White Sox see this. You're giving way too much insight.
When I used to work for another outlet, Dan McGrath, who I think, Ryan, great dude, one of my mentors. I used to cover these. I did GA for Chicago Tribune. I did general assignment stuff. And there was a stretch of 3 or 4 leagues that I covered. They folded shortly thereafter, after I covered them. There was a professional volleyball league that played out of St. Xavier, the CBA, which Cap probably is familiar with. After Isaiah bought him, they folded shortly thereafter. So I had a good run there. A good stretch.
He's the Grim Reaper.
I'm going to update my LinkedIn as soon as this podcast is over.
But back to the winter meetings. I think there's good and bad in them. I mean, there's some. I remember there were some early on where they used to go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and finish on Monday. And Kenny Williams was the GM at the beginning when I was first doing this. And he'd come to us on a Friday and be like, guys, we aren't doing anything. So we can meet if you want every day, which we did because you got to do stories every day, right? But he's like, but now it's different. Now it's different. And of course, they're in their latest incarnation of a rebuild here. So they're making moves to kind of enhance that. But there's good to it. There's a lot of scheduled stuff. You have your manager meetings. There's, the GM session every day. There's a breakfast with the writers, and each table has their manager there. That the Hall of Fame announced the committee for I forgot what Golden Era, I guess it is, on Sunday night, the Frick Award. But there's a lot of standing too. There's a lot of standing around and moving around, and not a lot of there's some downtime depending on how late you choose to stay in the hotel lobbies.
That's
and that
why
kind of thing.
That's why I love covering it.
Yeah, I remember one year it was in San Diego. I don't know if I ever told this story, and I kind of had called it a night, and I'm heading to my hotel room, and a friend of mine, I forgot what company it was, but she sold bats. It was the John Lester signing year. And she's like, "Oh, you're done?" And I'm like, "Yeah, the Sox aren't doing anything tonight. I'm going to sleep." And she's like, "I'm like, everyone's waiting for Lester." And she goes, "Oh, he's going to the Cubs." And I'm like, "How do you know that?" And she goes, "I heard from someone she knew inside the Red Sox organization." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." Went to sleep, woke up, he went to the Cubs. She never lets me live that down. She's not in the industry anymore. But she never lets me live that down. That she knew it, and I didn't do anything with it.
She hung out with you and is no longer in the industry.
Merk gets the most insight. Merk has unbelievable context. But like, if you notice Merk's story, she's like, "Yeah, a friend of mine, this one chick," and I'm going like, "How many chicks do you hang out with?"
Great follow on Instagram.
Attaboy, Merk.
That's what happens. Michigan wins a national title. They beat Ohio State's ass every year. Merk gets the benefits of that.
Where's the nepotism at, Merk? How does Getsy not throw you a text and be like, "Here's what's going to happen"? He's
that game Saturday was ridiculous. I would have bet large sums of money that Michigan was not going to win that game. That's literally one of the biggest college upsets I've seen in the years I've watched college football, because they were 23.5-point dogs going into that game. They should have been.
I'll take 23.5 every day of the week on Rivalry Saturday.
No question.
I wouldn't have. I've been stupid enough to bet the money line, but I guess I would have been smart.
And Ryan Day literally looked. I mean, I'm not kidding. When after that game, when he was on the sideline and the whole mess was going on with the flag and all that, and he looked like he was in shock. Like, I don't know exactly. I'm not a medical professional, but he looked like what shock I would think would look like. He just kind of stood there, like, I think in his mind was like, "You got to be kidding me." And the funny thing is, they still can win a national title. In the old days, that would have been they're able to. They're
too soft. But now we're talking. This is the Ohio State Michigan podcast. You're listening to the White Sox Recap Network.
Hey, in case I jinx you with the Sox stuff, you got a bat. You got something to fall back on, right? We can go into college football.
This is true. They have an offensive coordinator opening. That's what I love about Michigan. They win the game, you're still fired. Anyway, back to what we were originally scheduled.
Back to the White Sox.
So the winter meetings, as you know, how many have you been to, Ryan?
5, I think. Off the top of my head, I have to really get a couple have been in San Diego, which have been 2 of my favorite.
That's great.
Vegas is the hardest to cover because
those 2 were great. Yep.
Yeah, Vegas was phenomenal because it's just a phenomenal period. But that's where stuff happens, and you have no idea. Like, you're sitting in Mandalay Bay, and the White Sox are meeting with Bryce Harper at the Aria, and you have no damn clue.
And it takes like 40 minutes to go between hotels. So even if you wanted to go over there, they'd be done by the time you got there.
No,
the first one I ever did, December of 2003, New Orleans.
Oh, Jesus.
Only time ever there. That was a mess. That was
half the GMs never made it to the meetings.
I think it was like half the writers.
That was before they did scheduled availability. They don't.
That's right. Yeah, but that was the 1 year. There's been a few one-offs. Indianapolis had one year.
I went to Nashville one year.
Nashville's had a bunch. They love that Opryland.
Yeah, the Opryland. Yeah, they try to get those big convention hotels that are just one-stop. Orlando's like that, right?
Yes. The last time we were at this hotel, the Hilton Anatole, it was a Wyndham back then, I think, in Dallas. I remember day 2. There was an ice storm they forecast in the morning. This is Dallas, remember? And everyone that worked in that hotel left by noon because they didn't want any part of the ice storm. It's not Chicago. Chicago, you get an ice storm, you're like, okay, can't drive between this hour and this hour.
Right.
In Texas, it was like, holy hell, we got to get out of here. We got to get home. So there was nothing operating in that hotel for the rest of the day.
All right, so let's talk about these Chicago White Sox.
We're done with Michigan?
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think we are. At some point, I want you to plant your flag, pun intended.
Yeah.
So look, we know what they are, right? They're coming
Right.
off a historically bad 41 121 season. You have Will Venable in the manager's seat. A guy that BA, I would maybe not predicted, but was hopeful that the White Sox would hire when we started this podcast, a couple months ago. And anyway, Cap is blaring his phone over. Yeah, thanks. We're only doing a podcast over here. I know it's not the Cubs. Anyway, I think there's a lot to like, to be honest with you. And this might shock some people of me saying this because I know where they're at. I can recognize where the White Sox are at in this portion of their rebuild, which is ground floor. Like I compared it the other day to this. BA, I'll ask you this before we get to Merck. It's like you're buying a brand new house and your plan is to gut rehab it.
Yeah.
And then you gut rehab it and realize the foundation sucks too.
Yeah.
So you have to actually dig that all up and pour a new foundation. That's kind of where I think the White Sox are in this. That Getz knew what he was getting into, maybe didn't even know how bad it was going to be, got the house completely demolished and looked and said, man, there's cracked concrete everywhere. We need to dig this up too. And I feel like that's where they are right now.
Sure. But from a foundational standpoint, I think that's why you go hire like unbelievable coaching staff and player development guys, right? Because they're supposed to be the ones that set the standard in spring training and kind of show you how to go about your business. Now, from a wins-loss perspective, I was thinking about this on the drive over here. It's like, okay, how do we stay at a triple-digit losses? Let's just call it what it is, right? Yeah. Like the fans dwell on that. It's something for us to talk about. So you essentially have to go 63-99, right? Sounds terrible. We were never that bad when we played, but that's a small wins, right? You got to get these small wins for the fans.
22 game improvement.
Hey, now, you Merc, come on. So I think it's stuff along those lines. And then, you have to decide as an organization, are we going to send it and mail it in these next couple of years and just go get like a huge rake for a Garrett Crochet, right? And to your point, and I'm sure Merkin has some great insight as well, it's like, for us, that's where we may disagree or agree on, right? Like what do we agree or what do we consider to be an unbelievable return on investment? And I think, if you start going after like the Cubs per se, Cap and I joked earlier, right? Like you have to go get premier pitching, a plant and play, a prospect, a veteran guy, but you have to go get like a Matt Shaw. And I think if you don't get Matt Shaw in return in that deal, I think you took an L.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into exactly what that trade's going to look like, but Merc, what do you think? Like where the White Sox are, and what Chris has brought in a lot of guys, as we know, from outside of the organization. So and not just outside, or like as you said, perceived great hires and perceived well in the game. So when you look at where the White Sox are, I mean, there's nowhere to go but up. But they've tried this before and failed. So why will this be different?
Well, two opening things. First of all, in the big picture story I did on Venable, Brian Anderson was one of the people I quoted in the story. How about that?
You better have, Merc.
And then number two, great reference on the house. But here's the thing. We've both seen so many rebuilds between both sides of town, so many sports. I keep looking at like the 76ers. They tore it down. They did it right. They've not come close to a championship, right? And that's the ultimate goal. You don't want to just be good. I mean, so it's great to rebuild the house, but then you hope after you build the house, there's no structural flaws that prevent you from reselling it again, And I mean, let's go back to Rick Hahn. I think Rick and Kenny, for that matter too, did a masterful job in the rebuild part, right? I mean, look what they got. Chris Sale is one of the best pitchers in baseball history, I guess you can say, right? And certainly maybe the most dominant pitcher in White Sox history. I was not around to cover Ed Walsh, so I'll say Chris Sale.
You were just after Ed Walsh, right?
2 years after, yeah. And so, I mean, you got Kopech, you got Moncada, you got Giolito, Dunning, and Lopez. You got Eloy. You got Dylan Cease. I mean, you can't argue with the returns on these things, right? I mean, on these trades. And it just didn't pan out. And that's the problem, is you take proven guys. Chris Sale went and won a World Series in Boston. Adam Eaton went and won a World Series in Washington. Jose Quintana helped the Cubs win a division in 2017. So you take proven guys, and I don't want to diminish, young guys' skills, but you're basically taking a lottery ticket, right? I mean, you're basically taking a chance. Even the best of guys. Moncada was the number one prospect. I like Moncada. I like covering Moncada. He had some great moments. Couldn't stay healthy, right? Luis Robert has had one of the more complete seasons in franchise history in 23, but can't stay healthy. Eloy, 40 home run potential, couldn't stay healthy, And then there was some underperformance and some free agent signings. But as of right now, I mean, Crochet, And see, I'm torn on this. I've written this that I think you can keep them. I get the whole premise. I get the whole big picture outlook and wonderful rebuilds is that they're probably not, barring something miraculous. And Kansas City did go from 56 wins to the playoffs, but they also have Bobby Witt Jr. Which
thank
helps a
you.
little
I
bit.
appreciate that, Kevin.
And Salvador Perez and Vinny Pasquantino. But
and real quick, Merk, I was going to tell you too, you just lied to me, I think, for the first time in our 20-year friendship.
Probably not the first time.
You said Moncada and Luis Robert can't stay healthy. Au contraire, they're plenty healthy when they're filming those reggaeton music videos in the off season. Yep. So best believe that when it's time for that camera to go on and them to, look good in those music videos, they're always top notch, 100% ready to go.
Yep. I didn't say they can't. I said they've had trouble with injuries more than they can't stay healthy. But even the best plans didn't work. But Crochet obviously not. See, Crochet's a guy, and he was kind of like Sale, and BA can attest to this. Sale, I think, kind of learned from Burley and Danks is they're more than just kind of a pitcher. There were so many times, and you probably saw this too, Guff. There were so many times where you'd be walking through the clubhouse and you'd see Crochet there with Davis Martin and Jonathan Cannon. And why am I blanking on? Oh my God, I'm blanking on the guy they got in the Cease trade.
Thorpe.
Drew Thorpe. Oh my God. Sorry, Drew. Sitting there talking about, first of all, just joking around, but second of all, talking about what they threw in that game, or certain innings or that kind of thing. And he's that kind of guy. He's that kind of guy that you build around. He's not just a dude who's got great stuff and had an unbelievable year going from bullpen to starter. But if you're not going to spend big, and it does not look like for the foreseeable future, meaning like a couple years, that the Sox are going to do that, I guess that's the way you have to go after it. What they get, and I kind of will use another reference. I kind of look at it, you don't want to diminish players to like a piece of land, but I kind of look at it, if you own a piece of land and you don't want to sell it, but you're willing to sell it, you ask for the highest price, right? So if it's worth $1 million, you ask for $3 million. If someone says we'll give you $1.5 million, you say, no, I'm going to keep it. If someone says we'll give you 3 or 3.2, you're like, dude, let's do it. Let's sell the land. And I think that's with Crochet. I think Chris has got to set a bar extremely high, and I don't think you can come down from it. And I think if that means that it doesn't happen at the winter meetings, if that means it happens in January or does not happen at all, which would be great to have Crochet at the top of your rotation, especially with Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith not too far off, then, you either keep them, look at it in spring training like they did with Dylan last year, look at the trade deadline, or see if you can extend him. So, I mean, I just think there's so many things in play, but I think he's got to hit this one out of the park. He's got to, and he knows it. I'm not saying anything that Chris isn't going to watch this and go like, yeah, geez, I guess I do. He knows. and the same with a guy like Robert. I get that Robert had a rough year, and Robert was, accountable for it. He didn't even use the injury coming back, being gone for 2 months as an excuse. He said he just didn't have a good year. So I think, you trade him the year before, it's much more interest than probably what it is now, but they still know what that guy can do. And much like Mr. Anderson to your left there, even when he was hurt, he could play. Even when he was off offensively, he could still play defense out in center field. So that's one thing in this age of run prevention where it's so big in every team, every aspect. Robert gives you that, even if he's not hitting. So maybe Robert's not quite the bar you set for Crochet, but again, you have 1 year left to him and two $20 million options with two $2 million buyouts. Again, you don't have to force it. It's not like Rick had to do some things in that first year rebuild where a couple times he had to do it because there were expiring contracts. These are not expiring contracts. So yes, you can trade them, but you better not sell short on it because this is imperative to your future.
Yeah, this is where BA and I with you too, Merk. Like, I can see eye to eye with you guys in terms of why I can make a case all day as to why you build around Garrett Crochet. That's easy. Yeah. It's very easy to do that. It's not easy to do when your trajectories are like this, you know, like when you meet a great girl and you're not seeing eye to eye, it just ships in the night, man. Like it just wasn't your time. Life's about timing, and the timing with Garrett Crochet and the Chicago White Sox do not line up. I selfishly don't want Garrett Crochet to go anywhere. Why would I want that? And for the same selfish reasons, they have to trade him because where you are as a franchise, and you mentioned years, plural, as to when they'll be let's call it competitive. I'll put that in quotes for those listening. Competitive. It won't line up with where Garrett Crochet's control will be. And even if you extend him today for 5 years, 3 of those years are uncompetitive, probably.
I was gonna say,
now,
if you send them for 5 years, they better be competitive in that time, or we're all gonna go nuts by the end of that.
But I'm saying I'm giving you 2 right now that they won't be.
Right.
Let's call it 3. It's so 3 years we're sitting here, and he's got 2 years left on a higher price deal. He's older. You've lost out the opportunity. I think they have the true golden nugget. Trades are the hardest to predict, as you know, but BA, they have what everyone else in baseball wants: a controllable, young, talented, cheap starting pitcher.
No, it's absolutely true. I think, like, selfishly, I was wishful thinking over here. It's like maybe the White Sox can backlog that deal, just like with Shohei Ohtani, like 1 million, 1 million, 80, 80, 80, right? And so when they trade him halfway through the second year, but again, I think, and Merk and, Guff and I have talked extensively about this. And as we've discussed it more, we've kind of met in the middle where we both agree. It's like, yeah, you're probably right. He does need to get traded. But I thought, unlike Robert, he still has 2+ years of control. And I'm like, man, again, like as a White Sox fan and someone who wants to go out there and fill seats, it's like, what do you do? Like if your young guys aren't going to compete, I guess the problem I have is even when we struggled in my era for that 5 years, right? We weren't the best team, or we knew we weren't going to make the playoffs. I felt like against the bad or the good teams, we'd go out there and go like 4-6 against them, or like 5-7 in a 12-game series, right? Yep. In division. And the bad teams, we'd go play 500 and probably go 6-4, 7-3. I just think there always should be a standard that, like, okay, you're going to eat your ass beat by some of those better teams like the Dodgers, right? The Indians are probably going to stick it to you, or you're going to go play the Royals when they're on a hot one. But man, the crappier teams are the teams that aren't as competitive. Like, I don't care what you're rolling out there, is if it's a young team or a Garrett Crochet led team with some other back end guys. Like, you should be going 4-6 or 3-7 at worst. There should never be 1-9s consistently hung up there.
You're asking for
you only had one. You only had one really bad year when you were in the Sox, right? The 72 and 90 year in 2007. Otherwise,
yeah, but you know what?
I got below 500s, but competitive though.
Yeah, so I remember 05 obviously won. 06 we got torched by the media, won 89 games,
90
or 90, right? Yeah, something like that.
I think the Tigers and Twins had 96 and 95 wins or something.
Tigers started off crazy. Okay. Twins finished crazy. Twins went like 36-10 in their last 46.
And you would have made the playoffs had there been the current
in this format. Yes,
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yep. and not to mention I was blinded by the audibles and center field, screaming "Bring back Rowan" every inning that I was taking center field. But I think about those times and I go, man.
And that was the media doing it, not even the fans.
Yeah. That was just you, Merkin, with a big old microphone out there, like, yeah, you suck, Anderson. Oh God. No, it's like you and Joe Cowley and all the rest of the crew like bashing me. I'm like, oh, hey, Brian, no, hang in there. I'm like, you're the ones giving me shit.
But 07 was the year you had that bullpen where like everyone threw 100 miles an hour, and after April it just disintegrated. You had a decent start.
That 07
Burley
year
threw the no-hitter. Good individual stuff. Burley threw the no-hitter. Jenks retired 42 straight. Jim hit his 500. But as a team, it wasn't very good that year.
You know what, Merk? Right before I think I got sent down because Ozzie wanted me to get some more at bats down in AAA. But I remember going to left field, I think, for Makoviak in like the 8th inning. And you know me in the outfield, it's like natural. I love being out there. It's like, hit me the ball. Right. My ass was so tight because like it was so cold out, and I'm going like, it's against the Rangers. I think when Kinsler was coming up, I'm like, no, my luck. Kinsler's going to smoke a hook job right at me. I'm going to lose it in the lights, and the fans are going to wear me out. So
that was during you were in there for Burley's no hitter.
Yeah, the last couple innings. He sent me a champagne bottle after I got sent down. He's like, your money's always good here. See you later.
That's fantastic.
But come on,
that's cool.
The greatest defensive replacement of all time is Dwayne Wise in the perfect game, though. You can't. Yeah. You can't top that with that catch, though.
I think he played that. Wasn't he out there the entire time?
No.
Oh, okay.
He was literally a defensive replacement.
No, I got sent down.
Put him in the 9th.
Oh, wow. Geez, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I thought me replacing Ken Griffey Jr. in the 08 diving catch, the blackout game. I tell everybody, Griffey was in his prime, running like a 6.060, no knee problems. I just told him I got it, buddy.
But before we go back to the winter meetings, 2 things. A, did you have to dive on that play for sure? And B, how great was it to be teammates with Griffey and Tommy for that matter too? I mean, you had so many good guys.
I played with 4 Hall of Famers like Frank, Poppy,
too. Yep.
Jim, and then Griff, right? And it's like,
how many combined? That's like 2,000 combined home runs.
no,
It
Merkin
is.
has one. This is another podcast, but
That's actually
Merkin
more than
has
2,000.
Merkin has the data. I texted him one time, and we actually had a lineup that had like 2,100 homers. So they call like Murderer's Row with the Yankees back in the day. I think we had more than 500 plus homers, career homers in that lineup in 08 than they did in Murderer's Row. It was
like 2,000 more homers than the current White Sox had this year.
And Brian Anderson.
You would have fit in well in the You would have fit in well in the 2024.
God, I'd be back. It bothers me. I can't go back in time. I'd have been like Getzy, 5 holes, center field. I'll make 1.2 million with no options. See you later.
No doubt.
But you did hit 2 homers off Felix, isn't that right?
Yeah, this 20 years ago, Merk. Thanks for bringing it up.
That's all right. It's something.
That's 20 years ago at this point. That's why we're all sitting here.
Right.
The only thing we're missing is cocktails.
That's right.
All right. So, Merk, what's the structure of a trade look like to you? Because here's the way I look at it. You're holding on to what everybody wants, right? I keep calling it the golden nugget. So I expect at some point there's going to be a team that finally spews desperation. There's going to be a team that says, I really don't want to give you 2 top 50, but damn it, I can't have the Red Sox get him. So yes, as Baltimore, I will give you Kobe Mayo, or I will do something that's uncomfortable knowing it's going to put us over the top. Like the Orioles have won 200 games the last 2 years, and it means absolutely nothing. It really doesn't. Right. You know, they're going to lose Corbin Burns. Garrett Crochet makes perfect sense. They have a boatload of position players, as we know, both at the major league and minor league level. At some point, Baltimore needs to decide, are they going to remain in love and just be a 95-win team every year that can't make it through the postseason because they don't have pitching, or are they going to pony up? Or the Red Sox, who have multiple players in the top 10, who I guarantee you are sick of losing to the Yankees and Orioles and being in 3rd or 4th or 5th place in the AL East. Like, someone's going to pony up. What does that package? I have a bet going with Cap right now that the Sox will get a top 34 prospect. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they had, I know they had 2 deals that went pretty close to the trade deadline last year, and it's been talked about many times, Dodgers and Phillies, and they couldn't work out the total return on that. So there has been, close interest, not just, we called on Crochet and we had to hang up because the demand was ridiculous. I think also some of these teams that are looking at Garrett are going to be in play for the Max Frieds and Corbin Burns of the world, right? So
the Cubs too.
Well, the Cubs don't seem, just from what I've heard, they don't seem like they're in that stratus, right? I mean, they got Matt Boyd, right? They just got Matthew Boyd. So are they going to spend $150 million just as a draw out a number? I have no clue.
I don't think so.
On a max, or Corbin Burns is probably going to be more than that, right?
Yep.
So so Crochet would make perfect sense for them. Brian was talking about Shaw. Shaw, I think there can be a line you kind of waver from. I was just saying minutes ago about how you set the bar and you don't move from that. If Shaw is untouchable, you can find someone close to that. I have heard not just Cubs, but the Sox are looking for a shortstop type in the package too. So I think you're going to get at least one top-notch guy. The Orioles that you bring up in terms of top flights, top tier MLB pipeline, top 100, not just top 5 in the specific team.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you're going to get. Maybe you'll get 2, and if you do, it'll be closer to the 90 to 100 range, probably, right? Yeah. So maybe you'll get. But the Orioles are a great tale again for the rebuild. I'm not a huge. I get it. Work for the Royals. Work for the Astros. Work for the Cubs. When everyone's doing it, and that's one of the reasons they changed the rebuild stuff in the last CBA, right? Was players didn't like it. Players didn't like the tanking overall. But the Orioles are a great example. And granted, they're just getting going, but they're loaded with prospects. And like you said, they scored 1 run in 2 games against the Royals, right? In the playoffs. So maybe Crochet's not what they need. Maybe they need a hitter more than no, I'm kidding. But anything helps to take you to that next level. And as you guys pointed out, Crochet is the perfect fit. Great pitcher, great competitor, great clubhouse guy. And again, unless you sign him to an extension when you get him, which could happen for these teams, very, cost affordable over the next 2 years, arbitration control. So I think I would say 3 to 4 player return, and the top 2 are the guys that you really kind of focus on and what you're getting there. And I think it's not just, there's so many teams that are in contention that could look at him, Seattle, Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, Reds. The Reds have a great shortstop who played on the Glendale team with Colson and Elko and that whole crew. Arroyo, I believe his last name is. this past AFL. So there's all sorts of teams that can meet this, and we'll see what happens. And then it's not just going to be about him. You know, they're going to look at Robert. I think they're going to look to try and move Benettendi's contract.
Yeah.
So those are the three main ones.
Yeah, a couple more minutes. Yeah, sorry, Scott. So a couple more minutes with Scott Merkin of MLB.com, the White Sox beat writer. You did write a piece about how the White Sox could be looking to move those three names. You mentioned Benintendi. There's a lot of money. I had heard that there was a couple deals close at the deadline last year that included moving Benintendi's money. I think you probably are a part of those as well. And, you know, that's interesting. Maybe there's a scenario that you package him in a Garrett Crochet deal. This is what I've been telling BA, because we have a side bet on who will be moved first, Crochet or Robert, and he's going with the Robert train. I actually think the value increases if you add, like, Robert's value increases if you package him with Crochet. Yes, you're packaging basically $19 million if you're assuming 2 buyouts, but like the Cubs again, if you're moving Robert to the Cubs, you get a Gold Glover to pair with a Gold Glove caliber in PCA, and you have a top of the rotation guy. Maybe that gets you a guy in that 75 to 100 prospect area on top of like an Owen Casey at the top end. So
he doesn't respect nothing. You can keep that.
Oh, here's it. Cap. That's the peanut gallery over there. The 83 win, $240 million payroll spending Chicago Cubs.
Or you can do a 3-way trade too, right? You can get a third team in there to try and increase the prospect haul.
That really has not, I don't think, worked out in the White Sox favor of late. The 3-team deals.
No, not in the short term, at least.
Yeah.
And long term either.
Merk, you brought up a good point, though. You mentioned earlier, like with Luis Robert. And I think Guff and I were going back and forth, like, okay, you know, hat in hand, you're like, oh, who's going first? Are they both going? They're probably both going, right? But to your point, that desperation component really comes into play, I think, the most with the Luis Robert, because I always compare him to like Mike Trout, right? When Luis Robert's healthy, he's going to put up Mike Trout numbers, 280, 35, and 110. And I think when you start getting those teams that are like, you know what, like Guff said, we're tired of losing the Yankees, or maybe that one small piece Baltimore needs to like get over the hump, right, to score some more runs. It's like you go get a Luis Robert, and if you're the White Sox, you ask for the moon for him, because you're like, this is what this guy can do in 162 games. Will he be out there? All three of us know he won't, but a team is going to bet on him and the training staff keeping him healthy for 150 games. And like, let's give the guy some credit. When he's out there for 150 games, if and when he does, it's 275, 280 with 30 and 100. And that just doesn't go on trees. And lastly, with the Benintendi and Vaughn thing we talked about last time, it's like, okay, from a competitive standpoint, you know, 250, 260 with 20 homers, you get both those guys to do that, money aside, that's so tough to replace in Major League Baseball. It's just so hard.
Really good clubhouse guys too. I mean, that's
and it's so hard. And like
guys, good clubhouse guys.
Yeah, and if Benintendi can get off to a hot start, be 270 with 20 and 70 ribbies and play the outfield, right? Like, I think you keep them, and I think you just wear it and see where it goes. And again, like, just kind of like show the fans that we're committing to the people we signed, but also we're committing to putting a product on the field where there's going to be some excitement in the game.
Yeah. I think when you look at Benintendi, like, people may scoff at the Benintendi stuff because, you know, he was kind of one of those desperate signings. But if you look at the splits of the second half, and I want to ask 2 questions as we wrap this up. If you look at Benintendi's second half, I mean, he had an 830 OPS with 13 homers and 38 RBI. Like, he was, for a contending team, he would have been a dude in the second half. He just did it for a team that was, you know, people were writing about for all the wrong reasons. So let's fast forward this with 2 final questions here. First one, and I'm going to put you, Merk, on the spot because you're going to be in Dallas.
I am.
Give me and BA 2 things you expect to happen at the winter meetings for the Chicago White Sox.
I will say one, they're going to trade one of those 3. That's my guess. Either Crochet, Robert, or Benintendi get traded during the winter meetings. That's my first thing. 2 is, since I'm covering the Sox, my back is going to hurt by about the 5th hour of day 2 from standing around for so much. No, and 2, I mean, all kidding aside, this is a pretty easy one. They're going to take
Bert, first off, way to put yourself out there on that first call. They're going to trade one of the 3 guys we talked about.
I mean, there's a chance that none of them go.
It's
Because
true.
again-
It's true.
Because
I
again,
like
it's
that.
it's
One of the three.
That's fair.
it's not deals that have to be done, right? It's not like expiring contracts. So if you kept them till spring training or the All-Star break, you still not the All-Star break, the trade deadline, you could or the All-Star break, you could still trade them. I think the second one is an easy one. They're going to take someone in the first pick of that Rule 5 draft. They are definitely going to add someone to add I think they've done a lot of research on that because that one they know they have the first pick in. And the Rule 5 is a tough thing. I think it's kind of a weird, bad rule, but they're going to add someone who they think can help them, not just this year, but as part of that young core they're trying to develop.
And keep in mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, Merk, that player has to be on the roster, right?
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's injury list, issues that you can get around, but
Sure.
I mean, and that's the
It's
problem.
likely to happen though on this team. I mean,
It
if there's
is.
ever a
It
time
is.
it's going to
Very
happen, it'd be
much.
this. Yeah.
Look
It'd
at a guy like
Merk,
Dylan.
we talked, Guff and I spoke, remember? We're like, man, record aside, frustration aside, from a beat writing standpoint, from a fan, right? Guff being involved in the media, it's like, okay, but from a minor leagues player standpoint or a prospect, there's never ever been a better time to be a Chicago White Sox or be in the
absolutely.
organization. Like they're going to continue to call guys up and give them opportunities until somebody steps up.
You will get a chance to prove yourself, even if you're not Colson Montgomery or Noah Schultz, top prospect in the game. If you're a good prospect, you saw last year, Jonathan Cannon was a guy in spring training. We're like, oh, this is kind of a cool story. He's pitched well, good sinker, gets a lot of ground balls, and got a chance to make 20 starts last year and did a really nice job and probably earned himself, has earned himself a rotation spot for 25.
Yeah.
All right, we're all going to answer this one.
Okay.
Garrett Crochet will be traded to.
Oh my goodness.
Chicago Cubs.
Wow, you're doing
Matt Shaw will be in that deal. And if not,
That's-
Chris Getz is getting a strongly worded text from his boy BA.
What you think the Cubs are going to? You think?
Yeah, why not? But send him across the street, let him have 300 strikeouts and 18 wins, and have everybody
zero,
cry.
zero problem with that. I have zero problem with
Neither
that.
does Cap.
If Matt Shaw comes over here, like you're getting multiple players. Merck talked about, they'd get 3 players in that deal, even if Shaw was in that deal, a lower end prospect, and then even like a flyer type guy. If 2 of those guys come over here and are start from 2025 to 2030, and they just start, and you plug and play them for the next 5-6 years, and one's an all-star, that's a great trade. It is. It's a great trade for this particular time. So you're saying the Cubs. Merck, what do you say?
Wow. I was talking the Cubs from the beginning of this offseason. I thought the fit made sense.
It's okay to
But
be.
I'm going to say Reds. I'm going to go Reds.
Ooh, you're
Hey.
you're coming in with the Tito Franco. Like that report came out as we're taping this afternoon, this morning, that not only the Cubs but the Reds were throwing their hat in the ring. The Reds are interesting because of the hiring of Tito Francona.
Mhm.
Like that shows you that that's an all-in type move.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that tells they already made a trade for Brady Singer.
And don't think when they signed him too, Tito's like, one thing I love about him is he's been in the game, had so much success, but also he's kind of got that Tony La Russa power. Don't think for a second that the GM wasn't like, hey, will you come here? Here's our plan. Also, here's what we're thinking. Maybe these 1, 2, 3 guys, what do you think? And do you want to move on those guys? He has an incredible amount of influence.
Okay.
And the Brady Singer trade might have lessened the interest a little bit in Crochet. Who knows? But it's so hard to pick. There's so many teams that are going to be after him.
hard to predict trades.
And it's you never know. There could be the famous thing at the winter meetings, the mystery team. You never know.
Yeah.
The old mystery team.
That's
All
right.
So I've been pumping the Orioles for 2 years.
That's a good one.
We noticed.
I've been saying the Orioles. But I did mention desperation, right? I'm going to say the Red Sox. I'm going to say that the Red Sox are sick of being the second man or third man in the division. They didn't like the Yankees being in the World Series. They loved that they lost. And they're not going to get Juan Soto, obviously. Like, I don't think Soto's going to Boston. So they go out and they have the prospect capital, as we talked about, to acquire Garrett Crochet and shove in the AL East. It's at some point, maybe it's the Cubs, maybe it's the Reds. Someone's going to give Chris Getz what he wants. And I think it's going to happen. I really do. I think it's happening before spring training. So three different trade proposals. Cap's over here saying in the corner of our that we're out of our minds. He's the same guy who said what I told him that Jose Quintana would bring back top tier prospects in a trade. He laughed me off and said it wouldn't happen. And I said it will. And it just happened to be his team that made an awful trade. So
Do you like Merck's take too? He said, his his insider connections with the Cubs gave him info. He means the server at HVAC. Some hot chick at HVAC. Don't you dare lie, Merk. So he makes my inside. I have some inside information with the Cubs, aka 26-year-old hot server at HVAC.
Wait, what is HVAC?
Oh, shut up,
It's
Merk.
probably
Didn't you
formerly
fucking
known as
know
the
what that
mother
is?
part. You've been there, I guarantee it.
I know Cap's gonna laugh at this one, but if you're final questions, I know you're up against them, but if you're the Sox and Orioles and you do a deal, and somehow, some way, the 1 in a million chance you get Jackson Holiday back for Crochet, how much more do you need besides Jackson Holiday if you get him?
I mean,
I don't know. I'd probably take his dad right now to go in there. He's still so jacked. Yeah.
I
don't think you
play,
need
right?
much. That's why, like, if you're like Kobe Mayo's 8, I mean, Jackson Holiday is basically 1A, right? I mean, he's had the cup of coffee. You're basically getting the top prospect in baseball with the way I look at it with Jackson Holiday.
But I'm saying if that somehow happened, would you need more besides the Jackson Holiday?
Wait, you broke up there. I think your internet bill just got it was due.
Merkin, your Cricket Wireless internet service needs to clean it up.
I broke up.
Yeah,
I think I got knocked off AOL for a second here. Sorry.
Yeah, attaboy.
No, I said,
I'll give you one of those discs. That'll 20 hours.
The couplers are not hooking up as well as they used to. I said with Holiday, it's not going to happen. They're not going to move him. Obviously, he's a cornerstone of that team. Somehow you can. How much more do you need in that deal if you get Jackson Holiday? Anything more? One or two, maybe.
You'll get flyers. But not.
Yeah.
No. I mean that he'll be the marquee piece, and then again you'll get who are the two guys? Matt Rose and Jackson Fleete in the Quintana deal.
Yeah, I can't remember the fourth
Justin
guy. It was
Fleete or something.
Right.
Like those are the two guys you'll get in the Jackson Holiday deal. Like the two guys. That's why it's a great trivia question. Like name the 4 players that the White Sox acquired for Jose Quintana, and people will be like, they acquired 2. No, It was 4.
Or what if you just really throw a curveball, the ultimate mega millions pick, trade them in the division to Detroit, go get the lefty Cy Young Award winner, and then Max kid. You never know. I don't know.
I think
I had too much coffee. Get me out of here.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Merk, where are you planting your flag in the hotel lobby?
Oh, that's a good question. I got to find the Michigan flag first. But I'll just probably carry it around the whole time. And when I get tired, I can just lean on it, so it works in a dual purpose there.
And then, if you were what were you say?
I was gonna say that was the silliest thing. I mean, it's you remember when Contreras hit the big home run off the Sox in 2020, flipped the bat.
Yeah.
Sox took umbrage of that. Remember what Rick Hahn said the next day? You don't like how he celebrates? Get him out. Same deal. You don't like how a team celebrates? Beat him once in a while.
Exactly.
So there you go.
As the Michigan running back said, you had 60 minutes on the field to fight legally, and you didn't take opportunity. Now you want to.
And trust me, Michigan dealt with that too. They got their butts kicked for a decade and a half by Ohio State. So
all right, so you're okay. So you're leaning against the flag and cocktail of choice if you do so partake.
Well, I'm not a big drinker. I'm really not a big drinker.
Ask
so
if you're,
he's a big cuddler. No drinks.
Something vodka related. How about that?
Ah, boy.
Hawk would be proud. So when you and him can spoon together in Dallas,
I'll make a toast to him from the lobby at the Anatole there.
All right, Merk. Safe travels. We appreciate you coming on. We had no laughs whatsoever, and we'll put a bow on. BA, you got anything else you want to say?
No, I just miss Merkin, man. It kind of bullshit. He only calls me when he's inside scoop on people.
We gotta meet up at some point outside.
Same number, Merk. Same location. Don't be afraid.
All right, for Scott Merkin of MLB.com, who will be at the winter meetings, for Brian Anderson, I'm Ryan McGuffey. We'll put a bow on this edition of the White Sox Recap Podcast, available on the Recap Network on YouTube and anywhere you subscribe to your audio podcast. We'll see you next time.